Welcome to the Nourish to Thrive podcast, faith-forward, science-backed strategies for women who want more energy, less weight, and real answers. I'm your host, Tanya Pennington-Miller, a functional nutritional therapy practitioner and functional blood chemistry specialist with a master's degree in applied clinical nutrition. If you're tired of feeling dismissed by your doctor, confused by your labs, and stuck in survival mode, you're in the right place. Here, we simplify the science, we get to the root, and we anchor it all in truth, because God made your body to heal and thrive, not just survive. It just needs the right kind of support and less noise. Hello, my friend. Welcome into the Nourish to Thrive podcast. I'm so glad you're back with me today. We are continuing our series that is called What Your Body is Trying to Tell You. And today we're talking about something that I hear quite often, and that is, I just don't feel as motivated as I used to. So this isn't necessarily depressed or unwilling to do things, like you're still pushing through, but things that used to feel easier just feel heavier now. The drive that used to come naturally just feels harder to access. And even just simple tasks can start to feel mentally draining. I know for myself, when I was going through this, I always enjoyed getting up and going running with a group of friends. And it got to the point where, I was still doing it because that's my personality, but I did not want to. And I so badly wanted to want to again. So for many women, and myself included, this really feels personal because when our motivation changes, it's so easy to turn it into a character issue. I know it did for me when I went through this. I assumed, I just need to be more disciplined. I just need to push myself harder. But so often there's actually physiology underneath what's going on here. So today we're going to walk through what changes in motivation might actually be communicating beneath the surface. So it's important to understand that motivation is not just mental, it's physiological, because the brain, hormones, our nervous system, blood sugar, thyroid, our stress response, they're all influencing how much drive, focus, energy, and follow through you actually feel. And in your 40s and beyond, many of these systems are shifting at the same time. So this isn't just about mindset, it's about understanding what the body may be responding to in this season. Because when the system feels depleted or overloaded or inflamed or underfueled or chronically stressed, motivation is often one of the very first places it shows up. Or I should say, lack of motivation is one of the very first places that it shows up. So let's talk about signal number one. And this is that hormonal shifts can change motivation. Guess when hormonal shifts start to happen? Midlife, right? And hormones can influence our drive, our confidence, our focus, our mental stamina, our initiative, and just our overall motivation. Because again, in our 40s and beyond, several hormones begin shifting all at the same time. Estrogen begins to fluctuate, right? Like we might test it one time and it's sky high. Another time it might be not detectable. Our progesterone begins to decline. And this actually generally for a lot of women starts to happen around 35. Progesterone does. And then testosterone often begins gradually declining too. And testosterone matters so much more than I think most women realize, because testosterone plays such a major role in our motivation, in our follow through, in our drive, our confidence, and just that internal sense of energy and momentum. So when testosterone starts declining, we start to feel just naturally less driven, less mentally energized, and really just less motivated to do the things that we once loved to do. And when that combines with stress and poor sleep and nervous system overload, the shift becomes even more noticeable. Now let's move on to signal number two, and that is thyroid slowdown can look like low motivation as well. And this is another big one that I think often gets missed because thyroid hormones, they influence the speed and efficiency of our entire system, including our brain. So when thyroid function starts to slow down, we are going to notice lower mental energy, more brain fog, less follow through, difficulty concentrating, feeling overwhelmed more easily, and just having less motivation overall. And this is where many women start to say things like, I just feel mentally tired all the time, or everything feels harder than it should, or I just can't seem to get myself going. Because when thyroid output slows, cellular energy slows with it. And when energy production is lower, motivation often drops too. And this is also where conventional medicine can be very frustrating because they run such a limited thyroid panel. In fact, in most cases, all they run is TSH, and you might get a free T4 if you're lucky, but they definitely don't look at the full picture. They're not looking at free T3, reverse T3, our thyroid antibodies. So women walk away being told that their thyroid is quote unquote normal. And on top of that, the standard lab ranges, so even the markers that they do look at, the ranges are much wider than we would consider functionally optimal. Okay. So women are so frequently being told everything looks normal. Meanwhile, they're exhausted, mentally foggy, struggling with motivation, gaining weight more easily, and just not feeling like themselves. And that disconnect can really make women start to doubt themselves. But just because labs fall somewhere inside of a standard range, too wide of a range, doesn't always mean the body is functioning optimally. So sometimes what women are interpreting as laziness is actually a body running with less available energy. Okay, moving on to signal number 3. Insulin resistance can affect our brain energy. So the brain requires a tremendous amount of energy, and insulin plays a major role in helping the body use and distribute that energy well. So when insulin resistance starts developing, the brain can start feeling that too. And this becomes more common in the season that we are in, ladies, for a few different reasons. We have our hormones are shifting. Muscle mass often starts declining. Stress load has usually been accumulating for years. Sleep is often not as restorative as it once was. And all of those things influence how well the body responds to insulin. So over time, the system can become a little less efficient at keeping blood sugar stable and getting energy where it needs to go. And when this happens, the type of things that we're going to notice are more brain fog, more mental fatigue, difficulty focusing, feeling overwhelmed more easily, and just less steady motivation throughout the day. And this is all especially when meals are inconsistent, like protein is too low, or if caffeine is doing most of the heavy lifting to get us through our day. So sometimes what feels like a motivation issue is actually the brain not getting the stable, efficient energy support throughout the day. And I'm going to bring this back to conventional medicine again, is they also don't test our fasting insulin. And it's so incredibly important that we see if we are experiencing any type of insulin resistance. I mean, this should just be run on every lab panel, and it's not. So that's definitely something I run on every lab panel that I run for women. So, okay, signal number 4, chronic stress and adrenal dysfunction can drain our drive. And this is especially common in high capacity women. So women who have spent years pushing, producing, carrying everything, and just functioning in that constant go mode, because for a while, the body will compensate. Like, we're going to get away with it. Stress hormones and adrenaline help to keep us going. They help us stay productive. They help to keep us, just showing up to get things done. But over time, that way of functioning becomes very expensive physiologically. The nervous system stays activated. Cortisol stays elevated more often than it should, longer than it should. Recovery starts getting pushed further and further to the side. And eventually, we reach this point where we say, like, I just can't push the way that I used to. I feel exhausted all the time. I don't have the same drive anymore because the body was never designed to run on stress and adrenaline for the long term. So again, this is very common in women who have spent years overriding what their body has actually been asking them for. So we push through the exhaustion, running on caffeine and pressure, resting only when everything else was finished. So again, the body is going to adapt, but eventually we're going to see the motivation start to diminish. Energy is going to be lower, and everything just begins to feel heavier to carry because at some point the system stops responding well to constant output without enough recovery and support built in. Okay, so let's talk about some practical shifts. Number one, support your hormones through the way that you live. So hormones respond to how supported the body feels overall. Undereating, poor sleep, constant stress, overtraining without enough recovery, all of these things work against hormonal balance or hormonal harmony. And this becomes especially important in this season we are in, ladies, because of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone all beginning to shift. So it's really important that we focus on consistent meals, strength training with recovery built in, morning light exposure. If you have listened to any episode of my podcast, you have heard me talk about morning light exposure, and enough nourishment to support the system instead of constantly depleting it. So no more forgetting to eat, sister. Okay. And I like to mention this often too, because I also am a fan of fasting. I think intermittent fasting, when done properly, is great. I think, longer fasting is great when done properly, but it needs to be done in a proper season. So I'm speaking to the ladies who are in this place of, where has my motivation gone? If that is you, right now may not be the time for fasting. If you enjoy fasting, if you enjoy the results you get from fasting, that would be something that we want to work our way back to. Okay. And I like to mention that because I know you hear me talk about fasting as well. And then here I go talking about, consistent meals and not skipping. And so there's a season for everything. Okay. Number two, the second practical shift, don't ignore signs that your thyroid may need support. So if your motivation, your energy, your focus, your mental clarity, if they've all, kind of noticeably changed, it's worth looking deeper at thyroid health, especially if you're also noticing fatigue, cold intolerance, hair thinning, weight changes, slower recovery. And I'm talking, we want to look into your thyroid with a full thyroid panel, not just TSH, not just free T4, because TSH is simply the brain signaling to the thyroid. It's actually not even a hormone produced by the thyroid. It's actually a hormone that your pituitary produces saying, hey, thyroid, produce more thyroid hormone. Okay, but we want to test your actual thyroid hormones. It doesn't tell us the full story about how well thyroid hormone is actually being produced by your thyroid and how it's actually being converted and then used by the body. So ideally, we really want to make sure we see a free T3. This is your active, usable thyroid hormone. It's the hormone that actually gets into the cells and helps to drive energy and metabolism and focus and motivation. Like, this is what's going to help you to reach your weight loss goals. Okay, so we've got to have free T3 on the panel. Reverse T3 is also very important because it helps us to understand whether the body is shunting thyroid hormone down a more productive, slower metabolism pathway, which commonly happens during stress, inflammation, under eating, chronic overload. It's essentially a brake pedal on your metabolism. So you may have optimal levels of free T3, but if your reverse T3 is too elevated, it really doesn't matter that your free T3 is optimized, because this reverse T3, it's kind of like this doppelganger of free T3, and it goes and attaches to the same receptor sites that free T3 can attach to, and it blocks free T3. So now free T3 can't even get into your cells. Okay, so we really need to see what's going on with reverse T3. And then we really need to see your thyroid antibodies, because these really help us to look for that autoimmune activity, which could be there because it's extremely common in women mainly. And it's often missed for years because it's not tested for. And women are being told that their thyroid is fine, when functionally the system is struggling to keep up with the demands that are being placed on it. Okay, so that's really important. Number 3, stop relying on stress and pressure to create productivity. Pay attention to how often you're relying on urgency, on pressure, or adrenaline to get through the day. For many women, that slowly becomes the normal way of functioning. Rushing, pushing through exhaustion, moving from one thing to the next without really ever coming down in between, waiting until pressure kicks in to finally feel momentum. And eventually, the body stops responding well to that pace. So instead of constantly trying to push harder, start looking for ways to give your nervous system more opportunities to come down during the day. More quality sleep at night, more time outside during the day, more intentional time outside, more space between tasks, more moments where your nervous system gets to slow down instead of staying activated from morning until night. And even the small things matter here. A few slow breaths before jumping into the next thing, just that intentional belly breathing. Taking a short walk without stimulation, like not even listening to a podcast, a quieter evening routine, putting the phone down earlier at night, because motivation often starts returning when your body no longer feels like it has to survive the pace of your life just to keep up. Sometimes what we call lack of motivation is actually a body that's been carrying too much for too long. And many women have spent years believing that their value comes from how much they can produce, how much they can manage, how much they can carry, how much they can accomplish. And listen, I'm speaking from experience here. I joke that I'm still in recovery from chronic productivity mode. Okay, I know what it's like to live in constant go mode, to keep pushing, to keep producing, to ignore the signals because there's always one more thing that needs to get done. But God never designed us to live in constant output. He designed the body with rhythms, with limits, with the need for rest, for replenishment, support. And sometimes when motivation starts feeling harder to access, it's a sign that something needs attention. It's an invitation to stop overriding what the body has been trying to communicate for a long time, to slow down long enough to ask, what kind of support do I actually need in this season? Because pushing harder is not always wisdom, sister. Sometimes wisdom looks like learning how to work with the body God designed instead of constantly trying to override it. So if your motivation has felt different lately, I hope today's episode has given you some insight and a different way to look at what may actually be happening beneath the surface. So next week, we are going to continue this series by talking about, this is actually going to be the last episode in this series. We are nearing the end of season 1 of the Nourish to Thrive podcast. It's crazy, but we have been out for almost a year now. So we will wrap up this series with an episode that's called What Lifelong Constipation May Be Telling You. Because just like motivation, that pattern is often communicating something important about what may be happening deeper in the body. So thank you for spending this time with me today, and I'll see you right back here next week, sister. That's it for today on the Nourish to Thrive podcast. If you found value here, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or send it to someone who's walking a similar path. Keep showing up, keep asking questions, and know that healing is possible, especially when you trust the one who designed your body to heal. Until next time, stay rooted in truth and nourished in grace.